Welcome to our November meeting. We're going to start out with Barbara's Bits.
Okay, I tell you guys all the time, if you want a subject talked about, give me the subject and I'll work it out. William did, but William didn't show up. So you guys get the benefit of this. William, you better be watching. Anyway, he wanted to know about grafting, budding, and tip grafting, air layering. So what I'm gonna show you today is a couple things. I don't know how many I'll get through, but the main one that we can do on just about any plant is called air layering. What you're gonna do is take, this is a tree, it's in the ground, okay? And it's got leaves. But you figure out where you want to do it. Now you can just do one branch. I've done this thick, but you gotta use a lot of sphagnum moss and it goes down longer. Most air layering is done in February, right before the plant wakes up for the spring. I've done camellias this thick around, 6-7 feet tall, and I leave them on for 3 to 4 months. And when I cut them off, I put them in pots. They're in pots for the rest of that year and following the spring I plant them. But then I've got a 6 or 7 foot camellia. If you ever buy little 1 gallon ones, it takes a long time to grow a camellia. They're not fast growing. So I had a friend that does all of the members of the Camellia Society went in there and did grafting because she had plants coming out this way and she wanted to make paths. So we took all the side branches and made them into the air layering in the spring. Actually, the summertime, we went in there around June and come out, took them home and planted them. And I still have some that I did, and that was 1990. So it's a good way to get a plant, a full-size plant, for a little to nothing, especially if you have good friends like Lane. Anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to sever the tree from its roots. Sounds harsh, but then you're going to fix it. So what you want to do is take. Can I hold that for you, Barbara? I promise not to touch it. So just for demonstration purposes, this is not the one that I would choose. I would actually, it would be an odd branch out, because this has a good form as far as the tree goes. It has a good canopy. But what you want to do is you want to completely cut all the way around. Because you go around the plant, for this purpose, I'm moving the plant around. Okay, and then you want to go down 1 to 2 inches and do the same thing. You see?
She's not going very deep.
No, you don't have to go very deep. On a tree, you have, you have 2, 3 things in your tree. You have xylem, the hardwood, phloem, the bark, and in between the bark and the phloem, or the side, the hardwood and the bark, you have a little layer called cambium. Cambium is what heals your wounds and does a lot of other things for the plant, and when we're dealing with cambium on every one of these demonstrations. So that's the important layer. So you want to remove bark completely out. And I'll hold it now. Take this one. Which will hold up the same side facing one. Okay, these are, you're going to see that. I'm going to pass this around. You have this section, here, I peeled this back so you can see, and then the proper section. So on the first one, there's a lot of cambium and phloem, the bark, showing. That's going to bridge. You're not going to get your result. It's going to actually, the cambium is going to heal that and form a bridge from here to there. It'll do the same thing on the second one because that's the second layer of the bark. So the top bark is green, but the inner bark is brown, and then you'll see where I peel that back to wood. And then this is what you want. You want to see pure wood. So y'all look at that. I'm going to continue cutting. So what I'm doing is now, this part of the plant is still going to grow because it's attached to the root. Did you show it? Yeah. Okay, so this tree is attached to the root down here. But from here now, it is no longer attached. So we have to attach it. I may not cut Gail, but I might cut myself. I have babies. And what I'm doing is, I'm going back in with a knife blade and just scraping off any, I'm actually scraping off wood, make sure I've got all that cambium off there, so I do not get a bridge. Because the bridge is gonna go right back to what it was, it's just gonna have a scar now. So if you get all that out, you have severed the connection to the root.
This is so steep.
Oh, that's
What's that
red stuff?
Planting hormone perhaps?
Perhaps, yeah. Okay, and then make sure that you see wood all the way around. Okay, now, you're gonna need heavy-duty aluminum foil. I fold it over, shining side in. Doesn't really matter which side's in, but blue jays love shine, so the less shine you can show, the less damage they're gonna do to your layer. Then you're gonna take a piece of plastic wrap, saran wrap, whatever you wanna call it. And I always fold mine over, and then make sure that the bottom is where the center fold is. Excuse me, top of where the center fold is. I'll get this right. So you're gonna lay this right along the top, and just a 1/4 inch fold it over, so it's easy to deal with. Okay, so now you've got your foil lined with plastic. And what you're gonna do, you're gonna make sure it's covered from here to here. Oops. The critical item is sphagnum moss. Anyone knows what sphagnum moss is? It's used for doing orchids, it's used for a number of things, but it's just a moss. It usually comes from Canada. There are some, we have some in North America, but you usually buy the Canadian moss. You soak it, pre-soak it. Do not, do you have water in it? It'll hold up to 80% of its weight in water. So it absorbs a lot of water. You want it wet, you want it sopping wet. Lay that in there. So when you put it around this tree, you're gonna have it all the way wrapped all the way around. Okay? So you make sure that it's at the bottom and at the top.
Water's coming down your arm. Water's coming down your arm.
Yeah. Okay. So then you cramp it over, right? And then on the bottom, you cramp it really tight. So you'll see some water now. But on the top, you want to make it into a pocket because it's critical that this stays wet. And you want to make sure it's tight on the bottom so it doesn't slide, okay? Some people put zip ties on it. Some people put a wire on it or whatever. It's a good idea because once the blue jays find it, they'll be up there pecking at it. And the only issue you might have, if you don't keep it wet enough, is ants will nest in this. So you want to check it. If you have irrigation, you're probably going to stay wet enough. If not, I check it every 2 or 3 days, make sure there's water, take the little water can out there and keep it wet. It's on there from usually February till June. When you cut it at the bottom as close to a node, which is, see where these leaves are coming out? Those would be considered nodes. You don't want to leave a stick there to rot. It doesn't matter on the top part that we're doing the air layer, we're taking the air layer away because that's going down into the ground and then your roots will be in this area here. So once that, you can open it up, you usually see a lot of times the roots will come out the bottom depending on the plant, and you just take that off. I put them in pots for a number of reasons, is you can't bury a plant and keep it in the root system. This is not a lot of root system and it's going to have to hold that up. You can stake it and put it in the ground, but remember, you gotta keep them wet enough as they establish new roots. So I put them in pots just because the roots are go into a zone, and then I can transfer them in the spring. So do it in February, take them off in June, pot them up, plant them in February. Okay? But you can get good sized plants like that. It's a very easy technique. Just the trick is keeping it wet. If it dries out, then your roots are going to dry out. When you're taking it off, be careful that you don't rip those roots, because they're going to be little white roots. They're not going to be brown roots that you'd see coming out of the side of a plant into the ground, because they're in this wart. So you want to make sure that you get that oil off. You can leave the sphagnum on. A lot of times the roots are so intertwined in the sphagnum, just leave it on there. It's going to become organic matter. So you don't have to worry about that. But that's what's called airlaying. Any questions on that? I would definitely use a wire. And you can put one at the top as long as you still have your pocket. Okay? So put one here and put one on the bottom. And that'll keep that on there. Squirrels sometimes get involved, and when they get involved, you never know what you're going to get. Probably a bunch of acorns in it. That's a good possibility. Okay, so then another thing that you can do is called bud grafting. I know these are not native plants, but this is what I have. So you collect your buds. When you take a bud, you're going to cut, this is where I took the bud from. You'll take it off of another plant. Oh, and remember, when you do bud grafting or scion grafting, you must take it from the same family. Don't do a camellia to a hibiscus, or a hibiscus to a rose, or whatever. But you can do rose to rose, azalea to azalea, hibiscus to hibiscus, and so on. So you take your bud out with a flat top and then pointed bottom, and you cut deep into the wood, because you got to get the bud. If you just get the bark, you just have bark, and you're not going to get a graft. So you have to get that bud. Then you come to where you're going to put it, and it can go anywhere in between the nodes, and this is called the inner nodes. So you put it in an inner node by forming you're going to take a T cut, like this, peel the bark back, very, very careful, and then put a little pad on top. Can you walk that around so they can see it real quick?
What are we looking at? This?
The top.
This top one.
And I'm going to put a bud in it when you bring it back.
Where my finger is.
Yeah. So this works really great on bark that peels easily. I tried it on azalea. Doesn't work. But azaleas are so easy to cut each one, you don't even need to try to air layer anything back. Now, I have one at work that I sprung to put air layers on, because it has these things coming out just like this. This was one of them. The plants down here, and they're way up here, and I could have done an air layer down here and made a tree. You know what a azalea tree costs in a nursery? I could have one in less than a year, about 4 foot tall. And this is it's a little kind of magenta color ones, kind of more to the red. It's not the fashion. Thank you. I knew you'd know, but it's a red one. But it's not Little John. It's not Red Ruffle. It's just wise. Could be Formosa. Anyway, it's not Formosa. But anyway, it's if you could get a great little tree. Now, if you look at this, actually I'm going to pass this around so you can look. If you go and look at your azaleas and you see these little brown spots on that, they're not on it now because they go away. The eggs are in the ground, the bug's dead. But this is called lace bug. Not lace wing. Lace wing is beneficial, lace bug is bad. And they're sucking the juices out of it on the back. You're looking at the back. See the brown?
Yes.
That's actually excretion.
Okay.
Or what?
So nobody wants to touch this, huh?
No, not really. It won't rub off on you. But that's what they do. And if you have that on your azaleas in June, go out and check the bud. It's about this big, it has two little lacy wings, and they're doing, if you look at the top of that, you'll see where it looks like something starting to juice out. That's exactly what they did. Okay, so when you collect your buds, this is usually done on fruit trees. You take and slip this in behind the T and down to where the top of the bud takes that little platform that I made. So it's there, but Unlike this one that has to stay wet, this one has to stay dry, because that one's making roots. This is going cambium to cambium, and it has to stay dry or you're gonna get a disease. Or it stays too wet and just rots, just out of being wet.
But tell me again what we're looking at, because I don't know what to show people.
The brown on the back, this means you have lace bugs.
On the leaf.
Yeah, you
not
can see the
on
stippling where they took the leaf, the juice out of the leaf.
Okay.
The brown is their excretion, but they no longer there. They're only a seasonal bug. They come in June and they're gone by September. But they can ravage the azaleas. They love azaleas. They love sycamores. The number of plants they literally love. This is a waterproofing tape, it's just a stretchy tape. There is a grafting tape. This works just as well, a lot cheaper. What you want to do is make that stay nice and tight. You go around the bottom, and then you go around the top, and you do not cover the bud. And I do definitely put wires on this. Could have easier done when the tree's not out of the ground. Top and bottom. And the way you know that this works is it starts to grow. You don't have to do anything more with it. We'll pass that back around.
What do you mean it starts to grow?
You know, where that bud is, once the cambium attaches to the plant that I put it on, the bud will grow. So it'll be just like a lateral branch on a plant.
What kind of tape do you put away?
Well, there you can order grafting tape. This is actually hose repair and it works.
On the other grafting, you did, how much you have to cut on the bark? How many inches?
The bark, when you cut it off?
Yes. About
Just about, well, it doesn't really matter, but you want to cut your branch back to either an existing trunk. So if I aerolate this one and the graft is up here, I would take it back to here.
Okay.
Because you don't want to go in between, because then you have epicormic shoots rather than lateral shoots. So epicormic is just the surface. Okay, so take it back to either an existing branch or to a node, which is where a leaf would have came out or a branch would have came out.
On the bud grafting, do you leave that tape on for the whole season just to make sure?
Until it starts to grow, once you take it off, it's a scar. It's a regular wound and heal. When you do scions, which just means tip cutting, tip grafting, it's mainly done on fruit trees and camellias, but I used to, for my mom, I would take her red azaleas, because she had plenty of red azaleas, and because I worked in the greenhouse at the nursery, we did a lot of cuttings, and when we did the hibiscus, I would bring home scions, which is, you don't want the wimpy top. Never do the wimpy top. Do not use it for cuttings, do not use it for grafting. So you want to remove the wimpy top. Cut. And generally you want to see where the hardwood starts, which this is brown, and if you look at here, this is green, and then you have little brown stippling. So any one of them would work. Generally, a scion is about 4 to 6 inches. Would be a good size of a scion. And you buy these. You pay like in a camellia society, because you buy a brand name camellia, and you're going to show it in a show. You may pay up to $10 for a piece of a plant. And you have to get it and get it right into another plant as a graft. So what you do is you take your scion off. Okay? And then you take and you make a cut on either side. Okay? So you still have green and now you have white. So you four-sided. Then you go to your existing plant that you want to change the color to, and you go in the location, and then you make your cut downward into the trunk. And all you're doing is opening the trunk up. Then you're going to take your scion and slip it in, white on white, green on green. And I'm going to have Gail walk this around before, but you would tape this the same way.
And you take that up, Parker?
Tape it up. Because that again has to stay dry, that you can put any color of hibiscus onto another hibiscus. It's a very easy task. The trick is getting it tight enough so it stays dry enough. And the best time to do this is like March, when the plants start to be vigorously growing, because the sap is flowing in the tree and the plant, and it's bringing the sunlight in, the roots are setting up moisture, and they're converting that into food, sending it up, and that's how plants grow.
I've heard of people using the native sparkleberry and doing that kind of scion cutting with cultivated blueberries that,
Yeah.
because they don't have a site condition appropriate for the blueberries, but sparkleberry does fine.
Yeah.
So they do a grafting like that.
Yeah, and you can just, it's because they're in the same family. And a lot of our fruit trees are either root graft. Now, there's one more graft that we didn't do, and that's where you take, if the plant's coming out of the ground, you would go in. This is done on camellias, orange trees, roses. They would cut it about, take the whole plant away. All they have is root stock. And then they would have what's the scion that they bought, what they want this plant to become. Generally, this is, on citrus, this is sour orange. So you do the same things, cut it down vertically this way, do your two-sided cut, slip that in, and lace it up. And then the plant that grows is going to be whatever that piece that you put on that rootstock. And the reason for that is citrus trees have trouble with nematodes, and Florida's sand and yellow nematodes. Same thing with camellias. Camellias grafted onto ambrosia or one of the Sabanquas up here, which variety of seeds, but they use the tea camellia. So we get our tea from. That's the rootstock they use, the ambrosia and the tea root. On citrus trees, they use sour orange. So if you have a citrus tree that's been grafted and it freezes all the way to the ground, you now have a sour orange if it comes back. It does not come back. If it freezes down below the graft, you're getting whatever that rootstock. Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah.
Especially with the airline. But wait till February.
Yeah, I tried it from a book, but I know now what I did wrong. So
You
thank
tried
for
it?
the demonstration.
Yeah. So just critical, keep those wet, critical, keep tip ones dry.
I was too careful making the cut.
Uh-huh.
I was too afraid of going too deep. And
Okay, so you go right down the wood.
I didn't go
Except
deep.
you don't want anything to make that bridge, because the plant's thinking he just got wounded, and it's, what happens is a plant decompartmentalizes the
Yes.
situation. They send out tallow through the xylem rays, they compartmentalize that wound off, then the cambium starts to grow, and the cambium will come in and close that wound. So if you have any of the xylem there, not xylem, the cambium there, it's going to grow and reproduce until it bridges back to the tree. So definitely take a knife to it and get down to the root.
Yeah,
Very down the root. Because that plant is not using the tree anymore. It's using that little pathway, spider lines.
And there's no harm in going too deep,
No.
other than it might snap off.
Yeah, that would be the only thing. You want to at least go, I'd say probably, about your fingers width. I'm gonna go much smaller than that unless you're doing a hibiscus tip. They can be a little smaller as long as you get it right in the right area. If you want to come up, I'll show you exactly where I would take it cutting from. I'll show you what I meant by the hardwood and the wimpy, which is called meristem. This is meristem. The meristem of a plant is actively growing cells. That's why it's not good for doing the cutting, because it's multiplying and growing to the tip. So you want to get down to where the meristem is no longer, where it starts to get a little harder. Still flexible, but a little harder. Any more questions? If there's no more questions, if you have a subject, let me know.
If you do an angel trumpet graft,
You could probably do, you could do an air layer on that. You could do a tip cutting on that. You could change it from just being a yellow one or a pink one to a yellow and pink one. But I would wait till spring. Right now, they're going into at least a semi-dormancy because the days are shorter, the cold temperature's a little cooler. Most things are going to go to a semi-sleep or total sleep or go away for the whole winter and come back. That's why you got a lot of leaf drop. the deciduous trees and dropping those leaves because they won't sleep.
Even though you're watering it. Because it's like all of a sudden, everything in the garden, everything is turning, it looks like it's dying on me, even though we're watering
That
the
just means it's
grandfather.
winter.
Okay.
It just means it's winter.
Yeah,
All your
this is my
trees,
first
most all your trees, unless they're an evergreen tree, are going to be losing leaves. Believe me, from September till March, I do nothing but red leaves, because he's got sweet gum, sycamore, maple, like 4 or 5 deciduous trees on the property, so I'm constantly, and I have the pollen. I think the first one that starts with the way is the sweet gum, from the, and all the way into the oats, and then they drop the Catskills, it's like crazy on this property, I'm constantly breaking and managing. But the good thing is I put it in my driveway, let it see in the driveway, and I don't have to pay for the fill. So, and he pays me to take it. So it's a good situation, it's a win-win. Okay, if there's no questions, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have about 20 minutes until the meeting starts, a little less. We have sign-up sheets back by the kitchen area. We just got some new plants for our plants drawing table. You can look at the volunteer gifts if you think you're gonna get one. And we've got our merchandise. We have the tickets over there, everyone's doing them. So we'll have a little break and then we'll get started again. Thank you.
Yeah. And you make sure you put the top of it, because your root's gonna come out here. But you don't want it to slide, so you wanna make sure that you're down here. Yeah. Slides, but the root starts there, any movement of this oil, like this. Something like 1/3 tangerine, 1/3 orange, 1/3 lemon, or whatever.
I bought 2 avocados. I don't know if they priced it.
You should see either a bulge or discoloration at the bottom. It's very easy to see on the road. Not so much, and to me, it's used, gardenia, see real well on gardenia. Yeah. No, no. You want to plant trees now where they're established. To get them in the ground, it's okay, you will transplant trees also. So, yeah, so that they're ready. So make sure that you set that area where you have the new roots on in. What I do is, top this shape, I make the base of the rim, outside the size of the slide. That way, when you decide,
Welcome to the Florida Native Plant Society Citrus Chapter. I'm Donna Kerrigan, and I'm the Vice President. Usually I'm sitting back at the plant table, but tonight I'm doing your emceeing. Membership report, Kay. Okay, we have 150 members right now. Do we have any new members tonight? If all our the 3 new members, if you'll please stand up. Are you new or did you just sign up? Is this your first meeting? Welcome. Did you get a ticket for the plant table? Excellent. And you're also new members? Welcome to both of you too, and you got your tickets too. Oh, they need their free tickets. Oh, you want them to go now? If you have the free tickets, please go to the new members. Yes, yes. So if you got your welcome. If the new members want to go back to the plant table and grab their new plant, that'd be great. Go ahead. Don't be shy. And any first-time guests here? Welcome to, stop it, no heckling. Welcome to you too. Gail, do you have our What's Blooming? Be sure to check that out on my way here. I noticed something in bloom that I wasn't sure what it was, and there it was on our little sign. We also have some. We also have sign-up sheets on the back table. Thursday, November 10th, iNaturalist at 9. November 12th at 10 a.m., we have a plant swap at Pine Ridge Community Center. If you have any native plants or native seeds, please bring them to change. Otherwise, just come and enjoy the group. November 19th, we need people for a booth at the home show. We have a couple shifts. Please sign up. We cannot continue to do these without volunteers. November 14th from 9 to 12, we're going to go to Potts Preserve field trip. Where are we meeting? Oh, we're meeting at Potts Preserve. Excellent. Excellent. And did everyone get the email of all our events coming up? Because that's exact location and all is on the email. All right, so plan ahead. Our Christmas potluck is going to be December 7th. Okay, we love our volunteers who make this chapter thrive and support the work of promoting the role of native plants. Thank you to all of you who volunteer. When you hear your name, please go over and select a gift from the volunteer table. We have a whole table of plants over here, and then we also have some gifts. So when your name is called, please go pick from one or the other, and we do really appreciate what you gave. Brenda Anderson. Ben Bauer, I know, is not here. Lace, come on down. Karen Burkhart. Bernadette Christian. Deb Daniels. Go get a gift. Or a gift. John Devereaux. He is not here either. Gwen Dunaway. Yay. Richard Dunaway. Yeah, go ahead and pick something for the hub. Lee Esseman. Easy, go easy. Diane Esteves. I'm probably killing all these last names. I apologize. Steve Farnsworth. Virginia's not here. Judy Lathrop is here. She's like, I didn't even know I volunteered. You did something, Judy, and we appreciate it. See, all you have to do is show up, guys. All right, we have Barbara McCormick. Sandy Madden. Sandy Madden. Jane Newhouse. Liz Orze. Nan Phelps. Athena. Take two, Athena, take two. Debbie Ross. Judy Samilka. Joy, Judy. I just changed names, Danya. Becky Stearns. Gail Taylor. Rachel Vance. Sue Wasserman. Kay Wolf. Robert Wolf. Kay, come get something for you and your husband. And that would be our volunteers. Let's have a round of applause for all those people that helped us out. Did I miss anybody that did something and did not get recognized? Okay. All right. Our bylaws state that we hold an election during our annual meeting in November, and the election is determined by a majority decision of those present. Our terms run from January 1st to December 31st. Positions are president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, chapter rep, and member chair. Only members in good standing may vote or run. Under Robert's Rule of Order, if there is no opposition, there is no need for a formal vote. The matter is decided by acclamation or unanimous consent. Are there any nominations from the floor for any positions? Anyone want to volunteer themselves? Come on, guys. Okay, the chair nominates the following people to serve in 2022. Donna. It said 2022. You fell for it. I did. That means we're done serving. Donna Kerrigan for vice president. Do we have any opposition? Steve Farnsworth for treasurer. No opposition, huh? Sorry, Steve. Kay Wolf for membership. Kay's back there at the membership table. Jeffrey Bypart for chapter rep. He is not here. He's behind the scenes. The positions of president and secretary are vacant and per the bylaws may be filled later by a vote of the board. Does anyone want to fill those positions now? Yes, please.
Well, I will probably forget some things. President is a lot of administrative things, keeping track of the emails and booking, things that come in through the emails you have to handle and stuff like that. You have to speak at meetings and run the board meeting. The secretary attends the board meetings and the regular meetings as best as possible, takes the minutes and then files them. The vice president is usually kind of your stand-in person to take care of whatever you need to take care of. The chapter representative attends the council of chapters meetings, communicates with the society a bit, reports back to the chapter the things that we need to know, and attends the board meetings. The treasurer handles our books and the finances as they come in and files the tax paperwork and things like that. Oh, and membership handles receiving the new applications, forwarding them onto the society, keeping track of how many members we have, trying to check in with people that lapse and, make sure that they intended to lapse or they just forgot to lapse and checks people in at the table.
We do those online, with Google Meet and stuff, so you don't even have to leave your house. You just do them online, and they usually are about an hour, maybe if something's really going on, maybe
interested in taking on any of the roles of the chapter, we desperately need your help. For anybody who might be considering taking on a role like president, we have 4 past presidents in attendance right now. Athena and Sue. Steve Farnsworth served from 2013, 14, 15. I served 2016, 17, 18. Sue and Athena shared it 2019, 20, 21. We'll help you. When it's done both membership and secretary, Virginia, who's not here tonight, has also done both membership and secretary. We'll help you. It isn't how we're going to dump it on you and just let you go at it. We'll help you. And we desperately need your help.
And we're also looking for apprentices for, positions that are filled, you can kind of tag along and see what it's like.
That was exactly my point. If you can get some, if you think you might be interested in taking on a bigger role with the chapter, you are welcome to be an apprentice to one of the positions. Any of the chapter board members would be happy to work with you. And, delegate a few things so that you can see what is done, how it's done, and if you really want to do that. If that job isn't for you, then apprentice with one of the other board members. Each of them would be happy to share a little bit of the responsibility. It makes life go a whole lot better for everybody involved, and it gives you an opportunity to make this chapter your own and steer which direction it's heading.
When you have a job by itself, it's not bad. It's when you're taking on a lot of other things. Athena has been doing that this past year, and she's going to be stepping back a little bit. So we really do need some people to step up. Like Yael was saying, even if you just want to tag along, take on some role. We always need help with Facebook. We need help with the website, just about everything. And if everyone helps, it's a lot easier. And that's also with setting up in the, at like 5:30, we set up here. And also afterwards, we have to put everything away. So some people got here at 5 and aren't leaving till 9. So if everyone can kind of help out, it would make things go easy. So if there are no further nominations, nominations are now closed. If there is no objection, the chair will recognize unopposed nominees as elected by acclamation. Congratulations and thank you to the no one's really exiting, but thanks. If there are no questions, we'll start the plant drawing and then have a very brief break. Four, five, six. 4, 5, 6. Someone's got it. Are we feeding the bucket with nothing? You got it.
Take it back to take it back to Joy.
4, 5, 4. Hold on. All right, get 2. 397. 397. 333. Oh, wait, we got a big yay in the back. 404. 400. You get 2 too. 426. Get on back. 439. Oh, we should have one back there. 446. 432. $3.99. Oh, we got plenty. How many plants do we have left? Okay. Come here. Stop. 436. 398. 458. Look at you. 401. 460. She's done. We got some good stuff up there. 429. 336. 428. 452. 431. 'How we doing now? 453. I'm just repeating myself. 445. I'm not sure where these people went. 425. 437. Okay. 402. 3 left, I think. Wow, I think we're going to go through all the tickets tonight. 457. 337. All right, hang on. Let's see how many we got. Lace, do you have your own botanical garden? Okay, just checking. I meant tonight. What do we have left?
2. All right. Here you go. Listen up.
427. And our final lucky winner is 434. How about 334? Please take the beauty berry. Thank you very much for your patience. Does anyone have any other announcements that need to be made before we get to our program? There's always one.
Do I really need that? I don't
know. So I'm wearing my Keep Citrus County Beautiful hat and a Rotary of Inverness hat. The first one is I'm looking for a volunteer to help us on November the 15th, which is a Tuesday, at Whispering Pines Park for a Rotary event that we call One Bag. It's an environmental program for third graders. So we'll have Inverness Primary School come over to Whispering Pines, and we spend the day doing various activities. And one of them, they'll be putting plants into pots. So I'm looking for one more person to help me at that event. If you can, be great. We'd appreciate it, and I can give you more details. The other one is with Keep Citrus County Beautiful. Every year we offer a recycling tour of the county, and it's back on. So it's a free recycle tour to the 3 facilities. We start off at TCG. We go to a new place on our tour called Tri-County Recycling right there on 44. They take a lot of stuff. And then we end up over at the landfill, and we get a tour of the landfill, not only the recycling component, but how the landfill works and all that good stuff. Then we head back to Duke, and we have lunch, and we have a recycling presentation. So if you're interested, I have flyers on it. Again, it's free. It's Friday the 18th, which is a Friday. November the 18th, which is a Friday. If you're interested, I have flyers on it. It's an online reservation, or you can call me and I can just add your name to it. So if you want a flyer, great. And just let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements from the floor of business? Okay. Does anyone feel they need to take a break before we get going to the speaker? Okay, very good. All right, so nowadays most lawns are artificially perfect. They're a monoculture of non-native grasses that aren't really adapted to our soils or our weather and require constant irrigation because this is the ideal situation, as we've been told over and over. But what if the goal was just a functional green ground cover with a diverse range of plants? So tonight we're going to learn how to identify some of the commonly scorned lawn weeds, which are actually beneficial native plants, and how maybe a little shift in our perceptions of lawns could lead to healthier homes. So our speaker tonight is Nancy J. Bissett, a botanist, a restoration ecologist, a horticulturalist, and co-owner of the Natives, Inc., which is a nursery that's growing only Florida native plants since 1982. So she's been in business a long time and knows her stuff. As the developer of the Natives Nursery, Nancy has experimented with propagation and growth of many native plants, including grasses, wildflowers, and rare species. And she really knows her stuff about grasses. So that's why we brought her here tonight. I'd like to introduce you to Nancy Bissett.
All right. Pardon? No, I'm fine. Just so you all don't fall asleep, but at least you can see the screen this way. I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it was to have my husband drive me over today and get away from the I-4 corridor close to where we live, where it is one development being built after another, to the point where you can't remember where on the road you are because something new popped up. 44, all the way over, not a single development. You're so lucky. I did bring some retail lists, and they come with a caution. My daughter, Sarah Kiefer, manages the nursery and the office and her family. And so the only time that she's really set aside is Thursday mornings from like 8 to 1 o'clock, something like that. I guess if you really need to come at another time or you're a wholesale buyer, we can make other arrangements for that. So that I don't think was on the retail list. I just wanted to make sure you know that. So when I was asked to give this, I think I was about third down on the list because people kept turning it down. and I really had to think hard about this myself. And I thought, well, the only thing I've got going for me is I spent a lot of time on my hands and knees monitoring restoration projects, which usually started with a Bahia grass pasture or something like that. So it seems like by hook and by crook, I learned just about every little plant that's out there, whether it's a weed or not. Okay. So letting go. Steps. Cut irrigation to zero. See what survives and thrives. Identify unknown plants, native, non-native, too aggressive, especially be aware of those, or those that grow too tall. Examine your soil type. You don't need to put an official name on it. Is it sandy? Is there clay in it or silt, organic matter? And mow only to keep the tall plants shorter, once or twice or no times per year, or often enough to please your neighbors. And some of the feedback I got, people may have all sorts of plants in there, but they mow it very frequently. So that's an option, especially if you have an old-fashioned walk behind reel mower. Try backyard area to be freer or satisfy the neighbors. So I asked Shirley Denton if I could borrow pictures from her website, which isn't up right now, but she gave me permission. And she said she has a Freedom Lawn and she would share some pictures. She wanted to take new ones. It got down to the deadline. So she sent me these 7:30 this morning, finally. And I just copied her story. The lawn was planted to St. Augustine grass in 1998 when the 97-98 El Nino winter had all Bahia in this area flooded. I could not move into my home until it had grass. I kept the St. Augustine alive until the hill was fairly well stabilized, but never gave it any support other than water. It was gone in 2 years. This is her backyard. 24 years later, there's not a blade of St. Augustine anywhere. It is a mixture of other grasses, including one I don't want, guinea grass. You know it, it gets way too tall. It's very aggressive, common in orange groves, etc. And what are best described as weeds. Only I don't consider them all weeds. I have my own definition for that. It gets mowed at a frequency intended to keep the neighbors semi-happy. And she said this area, which you can't really tell from the picture, was never planted to any grass. It was an old orange grove with the ground cover dominated by guinea grass and natal grass. I have never done anything except mow and plant islands of native plants. Thought that was really interesting, but she must have done quite a bit of mowing and probably fairly short. Well, here is another example that didn't really work. Somebody let theirs grow up and it all came up in andropogons, blue stems. And of course, that gets too tall for any sort of satisfaction by neighbors, and it really doesn't give a good ground cover either. So you have to think a little bit about aesthetics, landscape design when you do this. So here is a close-up of an example. Actually, I took this picture, I think, from our nursery, and you probably can't see anything other than a mat of green. There you go. There's one. Black-eyed Susan. There's quite a bit of frog fruit, Phyllonautaflora. There's a few things in there you don't really want. And there's some little desmodiums, Desmodium trifolium, which creeps along, and it's in almost every Bahia pasture you come across. It's not native, but on the other hand, it's certainly not harming anything. So I started with an example of a bunch of spring annuals that may come up, and they may get taller than you would like for a lawn, but they're there for a short time. Like the geranium carolinianum, or Cranesville. Most of these, I really had to look up all the common names because we just don't use them. They're just kind of made up for the textbooks. Pepperweed, that one is known, Lepidium virginicum. And there are lots of cudweed species that are also spring annuals. I just put up one. Gamikita pennsylvanica. Also, a lot of these names have changed over the years, the genus and the species, so it gets a little hard to keep track of. I think that, yeah, that genus is one of them. And these two are, yes?
Just the one thing about the cudweed that I
Yeah.
know, it's one of the first forests that comes up and after the freezes, and the rabbits go nuts over it.
Wow, there's a plus.
Also, a lot of it has one for butterflies.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't added much butterfly information, which a lot of you probably know better than I. There is one coming up though. And I love these, the heartwing dot, Rumex hestaculatus. And it's often mixed, if it's an open old field, with toadflax, Linaria canadensis. Oh, and by the way, I did scarf a lot of Shirley's pictures off of the ISB website, but I also scarfed other pictures, so I really don't want anybody to use this program. This is just for your information. Venus looking grass, Triodinus perfoliata, and the one that I think is really showy and fun, the Erigeron quercifolius, which you often see along roadsides. Oak leaf fleabane because of the shape of the basal leaves. And of course, our coreopsis, Leavenworthii, our state flower. Annual, reseeds readily. If you can get that started in your lawn and you're able to let it grow up, I think even your neighbors would appreciate it. It blooms heaviest in late spring, but it can be there all year. And I always remind people, it's almost totally a Florida plant. It only ekes into South Georgia a little bit. And the common dayflower, which you will find along every wet area and lake edge, etc. It has a much smaller blue flower and grows much flatter than the erect dayflower that you see in the sandhills. Leer leaves sage. Salvia lyrata, it's one of the first things to bloom in the spring or winter. It is perennial, and it may grow too tall for people to really want in a lawn, but it's easily mown once it's through blooming, and it'll behave itself for the rest of the year.
I use it as a ground cover under my oak tree where nothing grows anyways.
Yeah.
And it seems to thrive there.
It actually does better in shade or some shade. And you can see that when you're driving along a road that has a shady side and a sunny side. The shady side always has more of the sage. Exactly. Yeah, so that's why I keep saying, let these things grow up, and then when they're through, then you can mow it. Yeah. Right, right. Here is another, just a general picture of the hydrocotyle, and there's a Richardia in there. There's that desmodium I was telling you about that creeps along. You find it in almost every lawn. And I think somewhere up here, somebody brought the Desmodium incanum that has sort of splotches on the leaf. That's a bigger plant. But, you know, having a mix like this is perfectly fine. Or basket grass, Plismonus ceterius. This is really one of my favorites. Some people have, for example, almost a grove of pignut oak trees going all the way down to the lakeshore, and under the whole understory can be this grass. But then they get a little disappointed in the winter when it appears to be gone, but it shows up again.
Is there a non-native basket grass also?
Yes, and it seems to occur only in southeast Florida, first of all, and also I brought a couple samples. The leaf shape is a little longer and more pointed, and it has more clumps of seed set, more than 6, I think. So at first I thought, well, people were telling me this is not native. And then when I looked at it more closely, they're fairly easy to tell apart. Everything we have here
Is the non-native one a different color or a different size of the leaf?
the leaf is a little more longer and a little more pointed. Yeah. Sedges are common in grasses, especially the Cyperus species. And I think the most common one really, they keep changing the names. I had to look at that. Cyperus ovatus. After monitoring for years, to me, it's Cyperus retorsus. I guess that always shows your age or how long you've been at this when you're not up with the current names. That one is very common, and so is the Cyperus polystachys. This is Cyperus surinamensis. I could have thrown up maybe a half a dozen more species, but they fit in quite well with the lawn grasses and are easily mown. But you don't want those two. The purple and the yellow nut sedges, mainly because they will tend to take over. And I think when you're looking at freedom lawns, I don't think you necessarily need to be obsessed about whether it's native or not, but I do think you need to think carefully about anything that tends to be aggressive. And these two definitely are, because they have underground runners, rhizomes, and these little nuts, they call them, that stay in the ground. So it's very hard to pull them out or to use any other method to get totally rid of them. So here's a couple that are a little bit taller, but I still think really deserve a place in a lawn. The silver-leaved aster, Pityopsis graminifolia, which now has been properly divided into a fairly good number of species. And this one is actually Pityopsis tracei. Here is a mass, and it looks just like grass, only the leaves are silvery. And also it takes mowing quite well. And it will make a solid cover. Blue-eyed grass, Sisyrinchium atlanticum. Hopefully that's the current name. It shows up in the spring, and let's see. It opens up. Okay, somebody help me. Is it the morning or the afternoon? Morning, and then you don't see it in the afternoon. So you're driving along and you say, oh, there's no blue-eyed grass here. But if you do the same trip in the morning, you get a totally different look because the blades do sort of fit in with the grass-like appearance. Now here's a solid mass, but in this picture, there is actually blue-eyed grass, not in bloom, but growing here and there amongst all these other things, including that Desmodium incanum with the little blotched leaves. So it fits in very well in a typical lawn. Creeping sage is neat because it likes shade very well. It's a mint, It has these very tiny blue flowers. They're less than a quarter inch, and you often don't even see them even when they're in bloom and you're walking by because they're so tiny. But they really do make a nice ground cover under trees or any shady area. You can walk on it, not a lot, because it is a little crunchable, I guess you could say. So now for some drier areas. Pinweed, Lechia decardii, sandhills and scrub. And in the fall and winter, the berries turn this really bright red, which makes it stand out. It wasn't real easy to find ground cover plants that fit well on really dry, sandy soils, but this is one. And the pinweed family, the Lechia, there's quite a few species of that as well. And one of my favorites, rustweed, Polyprimum procumbens. It does like somewhat disturbed areas, so wherever you see an open spot in a natural landscape, this often pops up. And it only turns that rust color in the fall and winter.
Right in time for Halloween.
Oh, yeah, there you go. While I think of it, I did put up all these samples here, and they're in Ziplocs and they're labeled. I haven't heard anybody, including Steve, say I got any of them wrong. But if you would like to take any of them home to look at them more closely, or all of them, I'm done with them, so you can help yourself when we're through. Elephant's foot, again, is one that reseeds quite easily, and it will do that in dry, shady areas. And of course, it gets its name from these big basal leaves. Elephant toe. I, that almost sounds like a rattlesnake plantain, but all of these plants, you look at the more in-depth about each one, so many of them have medicinal uses that have been kind of thrown aside. I remember the mother of my neighbor, when we first moved out to our place in the country, would come over and she'd be so excited. She was a very tiny, thin, very, very thin. It was just a part of her general makeup. But she would tell me all these stories about plants and what she knew. And she would talk about deer tongue in particular, Carphephorus paniculatus, and how they would use the leaves to soothe the eyes, just lay over the eyes. I wish we had more people attuned to all of these different uses and old uses. I could really get off the track now. Near us, we found an old Indian mound. It's actually in the hardwood swamp and not too far from Lake Marion. And there was another smaller mound near it. And there's a whole list of plants in the middle of this hardwood swamp with needle palm, etc., that you would not think were there, and they're not found in the area around it at all. And so obviously, I mean, this was definitely Indian mound. The Native Americans had some reason for bringing them there, and I haven't been able to find anybody who really knew. Okay, frog fruit, turkey tangle, capeweed, Phyllonautoflora. You're probably all really, really familiar with this one. But I think if you're going through an open expanse of lawn that doesn't need mowing or anything else, and besides that, It's a larval host for the common buckeye, the white peacock, a nectar plant for umpteen other butterflies and skippers. It's really hard to beat. And this picture, which I can't remember where I scarfed that from, that's all frog fruit, the whole thing. Oh, there it is, Bottom by Marjorie Shropshire. So I think if you had to go with just one plant, I think that might be my top choice. You definitely would never have to mow it. Frog fruit is the most common name. Matchstick, that's one I didn't put up there. Artillery plant, Pilea microphylla. Look at that. Yeah, you have a greenhouse, don't you? Yeah, so do we. And we have spent umpteen hours trying to figure out what we can do to effectively remove it because it comes up everywhere. But lo and behold, huh? Yeah, right. And then it has umpteen little seeds and you get 100 more. But it's actually a native. And it likes really moist areas. And there's another one, can't remember the species, but it usually gets a few inches tall. And it's also a Pilea. And it's also native. Yeah, I know. We don't like it in our greenhouse. But there it is, has other uses. Huh? Ducks will eat it. There you go. Has a purpose. I put thin paspalum cetaceum, because you often find this in drier lawns. Well, dry to moist at least. And I have a sample up here. It's called thin paspalum, I think, because the seed stalk is very, very narrow. And the leaves are a little bit wavy. It is native, and it's one that could very well find a place in your lawn and not have to be mown. Florida betony. I have never seen Florida betony that lavender. Usually, to me, it's white, and I've never seen it that thick. But just to give you a better idea, that's the shape of the leaf. And these little tubers underground that are connected by rhizomes allow it to spread quite widely. When the people from Vietnam had to leave, and some came to Florida, that was what they sought, because, what'd you say? You can use it in salads, it's crunchy. Like a radish, not quite that bitter. Right, crunchy, yeah, crunchy.
Also known as rattlesnake leaf. Because it looks like a rattlesnake.
You get it in place you don't want.
That's the point. That's the point of these guys, and the fact that it spreads quite freely. Yes. Option 2, add low-growing plants that fit and add color and texture. And this is a more formal landscape, but there's no reason you can't do as Shirley Denton said she did, and just plant some of these things here and there. Heliotropum curavascum. I thought I saw a plant back there. Maybe somebody got it as a freebie. We'll talk about, and this is one of the verbenas, and we'll talk about the mimosa in a moment. Whoops. Twin flower, Discarista oblongifolia. It also spreads in really dry soils. It doesn't make this thick a cover as you see here. And there is another one from moisture areas called Discarista humistrata, which some people actually prefer. But it only grows about 6-8 inches tall. and sunshine mimosa. Um, we actually gave it that name. And we named it after a little girl, but I like the name because when the sun isn't shining, it tends to collapse, those little glands at the base of the leaf. It has quite a widespread all the way over to Texas. There's been efforts to grow it as a forage seed by the wildflower growing people. I don't know that they've been as successful as the people in Texas. The nice thing about it is it spreads really well. The bad thing about it is it spreads really well. So unless you are easily able to contain it by sidewalks, for example, or you don't mind it crawling under your planted beds, it doesn't climb up. It always stays to the ground. It's a good one to use. And it'll work well with the grass as well. Yes?
I was wondering, where does it grow in the wild? Because we see the thorny one, but we don't see
Mm-hmm.
the sunshine.
Oh, let's see. The only place I remember seeing it growing wild was over on the East Coast, somewhere on the way out to Pine Island. I can't, I'm not sure about that. Like I say, it's native all the way over to Texas. I didn't look up the whole range. And yeah, you always kind of wonder about plants like that when you don't see it in the ecosystem that you can easily name. This was taken at Cherry Lakes Nursery a couple of weeks ago, and they were trying all these different wildflowers and ground covers to see what they would do. And in this area, you can see it's still beginning to spread and fill out, but they felt that it was a walkable ground cover, that you wouldn't trip on it. The runners are above ground, so there is that possibility. Right. Very, very deep, you bet. Takes a bit to establish. Once it's established, it takes a bit to get rid of it. But it is very pretty. And I have seen it grow in with regular long grass. Wild petunia grows a little, well, has very variable sizes. There may be some more recent work on dividing them up into more species, but our Ruellia, whether it's in our sandhill or our swamp, gets to be well over a foot with very big internodes. And in some places, it grows flat to the ground. And then there are bushier types. So you kind of have to look for what you would like in your landscape. People have told me it reseeds very well, so it can easily get scattered throughout your lawn. But it would have to be one where you don't mow it frequently if you really want to see it. Here's just another picture of it. The lance leaf coreopsis is kind of north and north central Florida, and only gets to be about a foot tall. And here you can see a whole lawn of it, and it looks quite attractive. And on a roadside, growing with probably Bahia grass. And the other one is planted in front of the DOT building. But this kind of look I really like, because it's very informal. It catches your eye. Skullcap, Scutellaria integrifolia. Again, it probably gets up to about a foot, maybe a little bit taller. It reseeds very nicely, so I included it. There it is, growing in a garden with, looks like blue-eye grass, thank you. Florida Green Eyes, especially for your deep sandy soils. If you can get it established, it has staying power. I have seen the tubers 10 inches wide. And so it's got a lot of resource to hang in there for the long run. I think it's got a really neat way of, it's only the ray flowers that form seeds, and the seeds are tucked inside these little sepals, I guess you'd call them. And black-eyed Susan, here's a front yard where somebody has just done a combination of black-eyed Susan and various clump grasses. So it's not mown, but it's something that neighbors may still put up with. From Central and South Florida, we actually have a variety called Rudbeckia hirta variety floridana. And when you read the literature, sometimes it says it's annual, maybe perennial. This variety is definitely perennial. We've had it in our nursery in pots for up to 8 years. So option 3, create a wildflower meadow. Now we're going all the way out, but why not? And then you can use taller wildflowers like this dry prairie planting that we did at Archbold Biological Station, and a sandhill planting at Bach Tower Gardens. This is a fall picture of the same area. In these plantings, we did usually about 2, sometimes 3 grasses for every wildflower. So it does have a little bit more stability. But I'm still amazed at the number of plants you don't want that come in anyhow, even though we planted fairly close. It's still a challenge. Here we seeded grasses and wildflowers, especially the coreopsis, in the many acres surrounding the Nemours Children's Hospital in Lakeland. And here's a seeded sandhill in the green swamp. The left was seeded, the right was planted by somebody else, not me. Or you can have a little more formal garden and still show off those wildflowers. Or mix a whole bunch of them together like they've done at the Pear Park, which is done by volunteers up near Leesburg. So I'd like to leave you with this little message. A land ethic changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of a land community to plain member and citizen of it. It implies respect for his fellow members and also respect for the community as such, by Aldo Leopold. So this is the new license plate from the Florida Wildflower Foundation, and I know Florida Native Plant Society is working to get one. Have they done it yet?
It's been put on hold.
Still. Okay. Well, I hope it works. It has enabled the foundation to bring in a great deal of money, which can be used for so many purposes, including research, which is kind of my top priority. I would like to know how to build these wildflower meadows, etc., with no weeds eventually. Make them really stable. I think weeds are still our biggest problem when it comes to wildflowers and bunch grasses. So I have to give thanks to the many photographers who contributed, in this case especially Shirley Denton, but others from the ISB website, for which I did not get permission, so please don't use this anywhere again. And some of the pictures came from the Florida Wildflower Foundation and the Florida Association of Native Nurseries.
Is that the number for the nursery?
Yes. Well, that's okay. that is my cell phone. You're free to call it. You're free to write to my email, which has to be in black, mbissett@thenatives.net. If you want help IDing plants, if you want to send one, put it in a Ziploc bag, no water. and try to get all the parts, including some of the root if you can. But I'm somewhat retired, and one thing I really enjoy doing, I say somewhat, partly retired, is IDing plants and giving out information like this tonight. Yes? 2 hours. I looked at it every which way, the way we came. 2 hours. Yep. We're out in the country. We're out east of Davenport. Yes? I have one copy left for me. I haven't purchased any books to sell. I should have done that from the foundation before this meeting, and I didn't. You can order it from the Florida Wildflower Foundation. You can cheat and order it up on Amazon, get it the next day. It was co-written by Stacy Matrasso, who's now our executive director of the foundation, and myself. And we were somewhat confined on how we could present and how much material we could present. So we were limited to 100 species. And I ended up choosing the species, and I went heavy on the wildflowers just because who was sponsoring it. And I chose all the species according to ones that were actually being produced by nurseries. So I stayed away from things I might really like but haven't been brought into production. And it's a good guide because it gives you all the basic information on one page. Native Plants for Florida Gardens. Yeah. Yes.
I did look at your plant sale list. Do you happen to have the dry bluegrass, the sugar one?
We have had it. I can't tell you at this point what we have. We have grown it, yes. Cicericium. Thank you. It's another one they changed. So I'm still getting used to it. Yep. So Sarah made out this list and it's fairly current. So it should be more what we have right now. However, whenever we find something that we think looks pretty interesting, it gets grown and other things get sold out quickly. We're primarily a wholesale nursery, which is why we're only open a short time. Yes. It's not up there. It's thenatives.net. www.thenatives.net or whatever all those are.
Does it have that listing on the website?
It has a listing. It's not the current listing. My husband is trying to update it. He's very slow at that. Yes?
Just because I'm thinking blue-eyed grass. Now, the only other thing that I would say about that is because it's in the iris family, which is a little toxic. If you're including it in lawns and you have like dogs that will eat grass, you'd probably not want to like just put that throughout the entire lawn.
Oh.
Keep it in areas that do your dog.
You know, way back when you saw, we started in 1982, and Florida Native Plant Society started when? Right about then. Well, yeah, because we were there at the first meeting, but that was sort of organizational meeting. Yeah. Anyhow, I brought some plants, and David Hall, can't remember his name, from University of Florida. He was a botanist, and he did his PhD on Cicericium. He says, now I know Florida's all right. Because he actually saw it being produced. Oh, I'm sorry. Names, if I ever forget the names of plants, I'm done.
Well, you know, they have a T-shirt that says, if you were a plant, I would remember you.
Oh, really? I need that one. I should not have done it, but I was asked to give some specific information to a consulting company that all came in with high snake boots and, almost safari dressed. And I started out by saying that, oh, I should never have done it, not to that group. Okay, thank you. Again, anything you want to take, look at more closely, or take them all, it's fine with me.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, everyone. Well, next month we don't have a regular meeting. It's the chapter potluck, and you'll get that information in the member email. But thank you all for coming out, and have a good night, and have a happy holiday.